Men of Reddit, what can you acknowledge is harder for women? That whole birth thing looks like a really awful experience, but in all seriousness, it blows my mind that pretty much every girl I know has had some kind of experience with sexual assault, and even more depressing is how many wear straight up are red. Creepy people following you. My girlfriend walked home from work sometimes. It wasn't far and it was in broad daylight. This guy drove by and asked to give her a ride. She declined, said she was almost home. When she got home she told me about it and how he kept driving up and down the street looking at her afterwards. He followed her into the apartment complex and parked his car to watch her go into the apartment. I was obviously upset. I went out with her so she could point him out, but he had left. It was weird. I told her to call me right away if she sees him anywhere near here. Never go home if you are being followed. Call somebody. Walk into a store. Enter an apartment management office. Don't let the critters know where you live. I made a great friend one day when applying that technique. A man was following me all the way home from work, so I just walked past my house and into the nearest shop, which happened to be a Lebanese grocer. I straight up told the elderly cashier, who was also the owner, why I entered the shop, and he took me into the back room where we spent the next hour smoking cigarettes and sharing life stories. He closed the shop and walked me home. It wasn't the last time that particular creep followed me home, but it was the last time I felt afraid. I knew I wasn't alone if I'd ask for help. Thank you for our friendship, Amal. You are dearly missed. This is seriously life-saving information that everyone should follow. Just because they feel the safest at home doesn't mean they should go there in these situations. Public high visibility areas are best. Imagine this but without a boyfriend that cares. Many times, to not say always, cops don't believe you and brush you away. Here in Italy a lot of women ended up tragically because despite of the huge amount of reports they never got helped. The way I think about it is this. As a man, I know not to flash my cash, wear expensive items, etc. in a bad neighborhood. That's advertising something that someone might want to steal. But it seems that being a woman is like always being vulnerable to that kind of attention. Because the expensive item is your own body. I can only imagine how stressful that might be, even in the best of contexts. My mother told me how my birth went down. She hadn't dilated enough for me to actually get out all the way, so the doctors suggested breaking my shoulder to allow me through. Upon hearing that, my mother snared at the doctor who suggested this and said, "You don't touch my son. Cut me open down there if need be, but you don't touch my son." And they sliced her open down there. And you know what the most effed up thing was? She told me she couldn't even feel them cutting her, because she was already in so much pain. And this was her 4th time giving birth. That's when I realized that mothers are just inherently badass in that regard. UTIs. My wife will occasionally get a UTI after sex and has to suffer the discomfort and the irritation of trying to get a GP appointment, UK, whilst convincing the witch of a GP receptionist that you want an appointment today. It does say on the NHS website that if you're prone to UTIs you can get a backup prescription so you can keep antibiotics on hand. It's definitely worth asking your GP about. The risk of dying when having children. Yes, I know men can't have children, but hear me out. I work in a maternity theater and see hundreds of births every year. It amazes me the amount of shunt pain and risk that women have to go through to have kids. Seriously, my respect for women has no bounds. I see what they go through during childbirth and I think I could never do that. By the time they get to the emergency theater they've usually already been struggling to progress for various reasons for hours. They arrive tired, scared, upset, worried, bleeding, in extreme pain and feeling a million emotions in between. Adding to that things can take a turn for the worse very quickly, and it is quite scary for the theater staff as well. Ladies of Reddit, just know, if you come into the theater when I'm on duty, I got your back. I don't think us men appreciate this quite as much as we should do. Menopause. My grandma always jokes that it's only men who go through the stereotypical midlife crisis of randomly changing up their lives, buying cool things, acting differently, etc. Because all of the women are too busy overheating, being hormonal, and having to deal with annoying symptoms at that age to have the time or inclination to have a crisis. Women already have a natural, biological midlife crisis. We don't have time to buy sports cars. No one talks about menopause at all, but it truly does suck. Irregular periods, vaginal dryness, hot flashes, chills, night sweats, sleep problems, mood changes, weight gain and slowed metabolism, thinning hair and dry skin, loss of breast fullness. Imagine having to go about your normal life with all of this and then smiling and pretending everything is normal because otherwise you're a bee. Periods. I try to help men understand what it's like for us, and this is the best I've come up with. Imagine you have the stomach flu, one of those bad ones with crippling stomach cramps and liquidae. You're exhausted, you hurt, you generally don't feel good, and your nether regions feel disgustingly in need of a shower. Now imagine this happens every month. You can't just take 3-7 days off every month at the last second. You have to go to work, pick up the kids, get dinner, etc. The world at large doesn't get that you're miserable, so you just get up and keep going. Hormones can play a part, but tell me if you'd be a bit effing cranky having to function on all of the above. Half the human species suffers immense pain and bleeding everywhere for 1 week for 50 odd years. Society, you hear something? I'm honestly surprised how little society cares about periods. It's either something gross or to be laughed at. Even from a dead stone capitalist angle, you have something that you can make a product for with as big as a base as possible to sell to that'll increase productivity. Yet nope. Here's a pad, tampon, heating pad, my doll. Good luck, and get to work. On average, could be longer, less. OMG exactly, they sure look scary. This made me feel acknowledged in my struggle, thank you. Wouldn't call them scary, just painful, annoying, and messy. The scary part is when it's late. Now, I have absolutely no sex life, but I still get worried when it's late because that could mean something is medically wrong if it doesn't come. Or it could just be my body saying meh for that month and freaking me out over nothing, which is apparently common even in people whose periods have been consistent up until that point. Peeing outside, or just peeing in general. BC, we don't gotta sit down whenever we need to pee. Yeah, but I can put socks on or file my nails or text on my phone with both thumbs while I'm going, so it's a trade-off. The constant talking down to and the constant looking down upon. I've seen this in all areas of my life, but it became prominent when I was a technical trainer at a large web hosting company. I had a handful of incredibly brilliant women techs that were berated, insulted and mansplained to on an hourly basis by customers either via phone or chat. I mentioned this to the director of our department who didn't seem to believe me. Unbeknownst to him, I allowed several of the women techs to change their names in our chat program to more male sounding names. Nothing else about their approach changed, but the results were astonishing. Within the span of the first week, all of their NPS scores skyrocketed. A month into it, several were nominated for Employee of the Month awards. My manager asked me how we were able to turn things around, and I confessed that I let them change their names. I graphed several KPIs to show that nothing else about what they were doing had changed. I would listen to calls where men who would fall just short of saying they didn't believe a woman could know such technical things, only to be transferred to a male tech who provided the exact same information. Only then was it accepted and acknowledged as believable. My hat's off to all women, but a special shout out to women in tech. The amount of bullshit I've seen you all have to deal with is astounding and embarrassing. Public restrooms always seem have more of a line than men's rooms. Plus, you'll get to sit down on every nasty public toilet you have to use. That sucks. This one time at a punk show, I asked where the restroom was. The gentleman pointed to the alleyway outside the venue. I thought gross, but punk show. Can't exactly complain. So, I release the kraken and make a piss. When this punk girl strolls up next to me, gives me a sup nod, whips out a plastic penis contraption, and puts my measly little stream to shame. I learned two things. Women drew the short straw on restrooms, and punk girls are a different breed. This summer I drove cross country to visit my family. We didn't want to have to stop in restrooms, so we thought it would be better to stop on the side of the road. I bought a Shiwi to use, and I have to say they are harder to use than it looks. I think that's the first time I've heard the Shiwi mentioned on this app, which, really, is a bit surprising. Dude, I mention the Shiwi all the time. It is my prized possession. I started bringing it places in my purse so I don't have to sit down. Birth control. My girlfriend is on an implant and it makes her period hella irregular, and so she can bleed intermittently with no warning, so she'll just go to the toilet one day and be bleeding. No prediction of when it will happen. Just hey, you're bleeding now. How long for? Wouldn't you like to know? Just so we don't have kids we're not ready for. I'm happy to wear a condom, but it's not as safe as using something like the implant or a IUD in terms of family planning. She had to get that sh inserted into her arm with general anesthetic like a bad A. And one type of birth control doesn't work for everyone. I've heard my friends talking about how they have to take the pill at the same time every day. I can't even remember to have breakfast most days. I've heard you can get injections that last 3 months and can mess with your mood even on antidepressants. And some women I know will be on birth control because their boyfriend wants it raw. The lengths they go through is ridiculous. The hormones can really mess you up as well. I used to take the usual mixed hormones pill which gave me migraine strong enough to make me puke from pain. Switched to pure progesterone pill just to develop an ovarian cyst and depression. Now I've got the only reliable thing that doesn't contain any hormones, a copper coil, and it makes my uterus hurt as if it's being stabbed around my period time. A lot of my friends told me how the pill messed them up too. This should be talked about more often. I get the injections. They are also unpredictable. I had a period for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, and you gain weight from the depot. I'm only on the depot because I have a lot of gynae problems. Have 1 and 1/4 ovary left, and they refuse to take out the last part of my ovary. That's causing a lot of my issues because I'm too young and I might want children. I'm almost 30 and I've never wanted children, but still I don't get choose what to do with my body. Childbirth. My wife actually told me today that breastfeeding has been more painful than the childbirth of our daughter. I thought it was interesting because I have never heard that before. Apparently baby tongues are like sandpaper. It can take weeks for the nipple joint to thicken so it doesn't hurt. Was news to me after I'd already became pregnant. Also, some women are constantly nauseous their entire pregnancies. HG being the extreme worst of it. I was one of the lucky few. Was like a 9-month stomach flu with a number of good days I could count on my hand. Getting catcalled. Specifically, I'm a guy that got catcalled a lot in high school and college. I ran distance in tiny short shorts and that's it. And got everything from whistles to honks. Girls blowing kisses to guys yelling fag out of their car windows. To gay guys slapping my ear or complimenting me. I took it in stride. None of it ever bothered me. And that kind of colored my opinion of catcalling, not that I approved of it, but that it wasn't that big a deal. Then I had a girlfriend in college, and she got catcalled while I was walking her home at night. It was a distinctly different experience. Turns out I never once felt threatened by my catcallers, but hers were definitely scary and threatening. It was a completely different experience, and really shy and frightening. It's really scary cause I know every man I meet is stronger than me. If one decides to grab me or get violent I have little way of defending myself. I've been grabbed twice. Every man who shouts at me is a threat, because you never know who's a grabber. First of all, periods. Hats off to you all for handling them. Next, being forced to be aware of your surroundings anywhere you go, like you always have a fear of a bad encounter. And finally, not being acknowledged while being out with a man. Many times I went to restaurants or shopping with someone. Everyone always comes up to me instead of my date. One time during shopping for PC parts, I had to state that she wants to buy something, not I, after many times of telling the salesman to ask her. Haha, it's happened to me a few times that I go into a shop with a male friend. I buy things for us. I hand over my money to pay and the shop assistant gives my change to the dude I'm paying for. Nice. I'm a guy and I was working at an ice cream and candy shop. And this older man comes in and orders some popcorn. As I'm scooping it into the container he looks at me and says, "Oh yeah, just pack it in." I like it when they pack it in real tight, in an obviously sexual way. It made me uncomfortable and I bring it up talking to my coworkers and one of the girls who was much younger says, "Yeah, welcome to pretty much every day of my life. I, male, have spent a lot of my life working in hotels. And learned very quickly that women aren't exaggerating about the sh guys will say to a total stranger. Even with me standing there listening to them try to hit on coworkers, there were people who had zero shame, filter, or sense of human decency. There are some real fine creeps out there. Our society enables it. Women are just expected to deal with it when customers treat them this way. It's just like in pretty much every situation. Workers are expected to put up with abuse and disrespect to help the business's bottom line. Racism. verbal abuse, sexual harassment, all of it and more. We need to make a change where we realize employees are humans and deserve respect at work. If someone is treating them poorly, they should have the option to kick them out. Working the service industry or retail was really bad because of this. It would happen multiple times a day when I worked at a restaurant. It's especially bad when your tips are based on how nice you are. So if I said something, there goes my tip. Also, they will leave a bad review because I didn't just sit there and take it. I remember one of the first times a guy grabbed my A. One of the other waitresses said I would get used to it. I used to work at a place where we had this problem a few years ago. I was always being harassed because I am very pretty and have a large bust line, which never helps. Well, the previous owner sold his little ice cream parlor to an older gentleman who apparently fought in Vietnam, I think. The new owner was a hard assed, old school war vet, but he had a very solid honor code. You don't do this, or consequences happen, sort of person. On the third day of his new ownership, a regular of ours came in to ask for his normal thing, and to harass me, as he always did, usually asking if I would add some extra cream to his shake, referring to my breasts. The owner immediately came out. I suppose he knew right away what this perv was saying, and asked him, "What did you say to her?" The guy clammed up, and tried to take the shake, but my boss told me to not give it to him without an apology, and a 20 in my tip cup. The guy protested, and my boss said he could do it, or leave and not bother returning. The perv apologized, gave me a $20 tip in my cup, took his shake and left. He never came back. This happened dozens of times. He got sued more than once, and had always won. We actually felt safe in his parlor, and he would tell us that no one talks to a female in that manner. I don't care who you are. It didn't take more than a few months before the pervs just stopped coming in. It was a fun time from that point onwards. He expected us to behave like ladies, and he expected his clientele to treat us as such. Haven't found another boss like that since. I miss him. R.I.P. Mr. Frank, you helped me understand what respect is, and to demand it. I like this story. There needs to be more exercising of the rule we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for bad behavior like this. Mr. Frank sounds like a really good person. The world could definitely use more people willing to stand up for what's right. Damn, so many good ones have been said already. A relatively minor thing that I haven't seen yet is hair. Body hair of any kind is often something women are expected to minimize, remove completely. Also, long hair is a B to take care of and manage, as I've come to realize by letting my hair grow past my shoulders during the pandemic. This is a refreshing question for Reddit. Being taken seriously is still a big one. Some women take their partners to places like mechanics just so they don't try to screw them over. Yes, my husband doesn't even know how to drive, but I bring him with me to the mechanic because otherwise I get nothing but patronizingly delivered minimal information and inflated prices. It drives me effing nuts. Have you ever seen that a very high percentage of women suffer some type of harassment, like in the high 90%s? Well, I never realized, but it's absolutely true and I hate how they have to deal with it. Making guy friends who aren't secretly trying to bang you. Finding clothes with pockets. I've only recently been made aware that women's trousers, pants, don't usually come with pockets that are actually deep enough to keep anything in there. Fashion is weird. Do deaf companies who still refuse to make women's clothing with pockets that aren't literally 2x plus the price of other clothes. They're trying to keep purses a thing. It's dumb. Give women pockets. Pretty girls getting sent creepy DMs. My sister just turned 13 years old and is a good looking girl. Countless times has she showed me messages on Snapchat between her and some dude's 4-inch penis. Disgusting. My friend used to have an image of a penis saved so she could send a dick in return. That usually creeped them out. Alternatively, she sometimes would send a family member a notice that their son, brother, nephew, grandson was sending out pictures of his penis. I used to do that too. Sometimes the worst threats came after though. I remember one of the first times I did it. The guy threatened to come to my house and force bleach down my throat. It was one of the weirdest threats I'd ever gotten, so it stuck with me. Yesterday my 12-year-old niece got asked if she wanted to F. Quoting here, not my choice of words. When she said no, he told her he would beat her up. Needless to say, I had an interesting conversation with that boy's mother. How old was the boy? Had an interesting conversation with that boy's mother. But, I know a friend from high school who at the time was 14/15 but would regularly get private messages through various social media with things like "you looking for cute sugar daddy?" or "so is 6 inches big enough for you?" I felt a hint of anxiety at just being told about it. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for her to get these messages from creepy men twice or triple her age. Every time my sister shows me the DM she receives from creepy guys, it's so disheartening. Like, come on guys. We're better than this. We're not just horny freaks and you're the reason why a lot of women seem to think so. I mean, I've had my fair share of creepy DMs, but most of them are from guys too. The thing is, has an unsolicited dick pic ever been known to work? Are there women out there who get one and all of a sudden decide they need your cock? I can't imagine it ever works and only hurts your chances, so why? As an Indian man, literally their entire lives, Indian men here too, can attest, arranged marriage is a part of culture. It's hit or miss. Sometimes it's literally a nightmare if she ends up with a doucher bag. Super defined gender roles everywhere. Divorced women are essentially second-rate citizens here, and there is zero sex education. Female orgasms are a myth, especially in rural India. Cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, even their husbands' undergarments is considered to be women's responsibility. I live in urban city and still my mom does it all you mentioned. Not that dad has treated her bad anytime in any way, but she just has that inbuilt mentality that it's all her responsibility. I get super annoyed when I am asked to start taking the same responsibilities just because I am a female. Me doing any household chore is normal, but every man in my family gets complimented for it every time they do any. I always felt it weird from childhood on why men in family were complimented for things supposed to be normal for everyone. Apparently it was normal for only one gender, I found after growing up. I effing hate tradition in India. Women cook, women eat after the men, women clean up. F that sh. When I'm there I try my best to get the women in the family to eat with us. Then you best bet my A is helping clean that shop afterwards. Also, the way men often have a grasp over women is disgusting, as well as the fact that domestic abuse is pretty common in India. It's an issue that's difficult to tackle as the police are corrupt and don't care. As a man, I thought it must be great to be able to have sex with so many people. I thought it was good that a woman could count on a one-night stand at the bar. As I got older I realized that women also have to walk through a world where a lot of men want to F them and many men don't care how they get there. Lying, getting women drunk or drugging them, or flat out RE, men they may know, or complete strangers or even close relatives. That must be far harder than having to impress a woman to have consensual sex. There's also the fact that the random one-night stand is likely uninterested in getting you off. Better to just masturbate with a sex toy because there's a guarantee of pleasure with no risk of harm from a stranger. Feeling safe in general, whether it be outside after a certain your parties, going to dates with someone new, etc etc. From the stories I hear from friends and acquaintances, it's pretty scary sometimes. Also less impactful, but gaming. When a girl is gaming, it's always dudes telling her that she's a pick-me girl, that she only plays Minecraft, that she doesn't know etc etc. Just them being disrespectful and annoying shit. Being encouraged to say no, and frequently getting punished when they do. It's